Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar of Ask Ad Manager. My name is Julia. I'm Strategic Partner Manager here at Google, and happy to see here, well, virtually, but still happy to see here everyone on Publishers on Air. Just a few reminders before we kick in our training, just a bit of housekeeping for us. Well, first of all, this recording will be available to watch on your own at this same page just when we are ended. Also, you can always come back to this link of Publishers on Air and rewatch any part of the training. We will try to answer the live questions and also some pre-submitted questions here. So please don't hesitate to push the blue button of Ask a Question here. And finally, in the end, you will get an email with the feedback survey by the end of the session, which will also appear during our Q&A session. So please do fill it out. This is very important for us to improve this training and just follow your feedback. And just a bit of a heads up, we're still working from home, so this is my home setup. I apologize if there are any technical issues or if you might see my significant other appearing on the screen. We're still doing it in the work from home setup. So as for our agenda today, earlier this year, we have asked several questions about what would you like to hear about Ad Manager. So we have based on those questions our topics for today's webinar. So we hope that this will match your expectations. Obviously, we won't be able to answer all the questions, so we apologize for that, but we will try to touch upon on all of the areas, and you can always reach out to the Help Center or through Ad Manager Forum. So first point on our agenda, transaction types. So this first area, actually, there are different ways that you can do business through Google Ad Manager. Let's look at them now. So first, if you ask yourself how you can transact programmatically through Ad Manager, there are two main categories, indirect sold and direct sold. When we look at them, the open auction and private auction are the two that represent indirectly sold inventory, meaning they are based on one-to-many relationship. The open auction gives all authorized buyers the opportunity to bid on your inventory. In this case, the ad auction is designed to make sure that you're earning the maximum possible revenue from your ad inventory. The more advertisers there are that bid, the higher the competition for your inventory, so the more you can earn. In open auction, Ad Manager matches buyers targeting with your inventory and seeks the highest bid. So just in two words, buyers with the highest eligible bid will win. So by contrast, the private auctions in Ad Manager allow you to offer inventory to a group of selected buyers that bid completely for that inventory in auction. So for each private auction, you can submit a minimum CPM floor price and determine if open auction bids are allowed to compete there as well or not. This is recommended because obviously this increases the competition and thus the revenue for your inventory. So private auctions allow you to offer premium inventory to your trusted buyers while still controlling the price and maximizing the value of open auction. Let's look at the second bit, which are directly sold. So here, actually, we have two groups, which are preferred deals and programmatic guaranteed deals. Two of them, they correspond to what we call programmatic direct. In this case, we're talking about the negotiated transaction between you and one single buyer. So when these campaigns are set up and executed in a similar way, there are still some differences between them. So let's just understand it a bit further. When we're talking about programmatic guaranteed, it allows you to offer your buyers inventory which is reserved, hence the name guaranteed. So in that case, it is negotiated at a certain price. In this type of deals, there is an agreement between the seller and the buyer, and you can offer buyers a standard CPM or sponsorship, cost per day. When we're talking about preferred deals, this allows to offer buyers inventory at a specific negotiated rate or minimum CPM and a certain terms for the inventory. However, there is no contractual agreement in the preferred deals, so you're not obligated to reserve this inventory to the buyer, and the buyer isn't obligated to purchase this inventory neither. So this is actually just a quick coverage up here. If we go back and we try to understand how to make this inventory eligible for different transaction types, we will look first at open auction. So let's just run very quickly through different transaction types and how to activate them. So here in the open auction, to make it available to authorized buyers, you can simply target the inventory with your ad exchange line item, which can be set up directly in your delivery tab. So please note that while making this inventory available through the ad exchange line item, this doesn't mean that you can't sell the same inventory in the guaranteed transactions. It's quite important. Your guaranteed transactions will always take priority over non-guaranteed or ADEX line items. So feel free to open all the inventory to ADEX line items. You're not taking any risks here. The best practices for trafficking ad exchange line items, there are a couple of tips here that I probably can name. One of them is use single ad exchange line item per inventory type. It's a good practice to allow multi-sizing as well. We also suggest to run run-of-network targeting and pricing on this line item, and if possible, avoid frequency capping. Then, if we look at the private auction after covering the basics of open auction setting, so there are two steps on how you can approach private auction setup. The first step goes around starting the private auction, and the other cluster is inviting the buyers to your private auction. First, so how can you start the private auction? Well, you just need to sign in the Google Ad Manager, go in your sales tab, select private auctions, click new private auction, and then you actually see it here on my screen, and then set private auction settings such as name, inventory type, auction terms, and save it. Once it is saved, the private auction is active and ready to invite the new buyers. So the second step is actually inviting the buyers to your private auction. And so how to do it is, again, going through Ad Manager UI, again, going into the Sales tab and selecting private auctions. And here you need to click the name of the private auction to which you want to invite the buyers. Click on the button Invite Buyers. Well, select them and set up the invite according to these buy invite options, such as low price or, let's say, override blocks, and save. Pretty much you are done. If you're hesitant or not sure how to do it, we always advise you to reference to our help center by simply typing the type of the transaction you're looking to do, and you will probably find most often 99% of the answers. So next, what if your private auction is not transacting correctly and you have a bit of a trouble? Where could you go? We invite you can either use your phone for the QR code here or save this link, but we can also access this link further on in our resources. But then there is this troubleshooter that you can follow to actually to go into the next steps and being able to solve the issue. Now that we have overviewed several main transaction types, let's look about how we can set programmatic direct campaigns in this case. It's slightly a bit more complex because there are several steps included, but it's just as simple as all the others. So if we look here at indirectly sold campaigns, for instance, programmatic direct here. So if there are several stages of setting it up. So it originates again in Sales and Proposals tab. No big surprise. So you can either initiate a proposal directly or accept an RFP, a request for proposal, from a buyer. So once the initiated proposal is drafted, you and the buyer may go back and negotiate the terms if needed. And once the terms are negotiated, you can request the formal acceptance from the buyer. So this will actually configure the campaign, allow the buyer to configure the campaign on their end. If you have any questions, again, we have linked here the quick link to access Programmatic Guaranteed one-on-one, where you can learn more and find further answers. So next, now that we know how we can set up different transaction types, we might want to know how to get better discovered by the buyers and to get more interest from them. There is an easy way to do it by setting up your publisher profile. This looks very simple, but we still advise not to neglect this piece because it's still quite crucial for the discovery of your profile. So they allow you to be discovered in the marketplace, which provides this shopping-like experience to the buyers to strike the deals for directly on your inventory. So buyers can negotiate with your network for PG, PD, private auction campaigns. And to create this publisher profile, you can, again, go in the Google Ad Manager UI. Then you can navigate to your favorite tab of sales, and you need to choose Deals Settings under the Sales tab. There you can select Publisher Profile and create a new profile. So once this click is done, you will see all the information needed to fill in. You can add the logo, you can add the name and fill all the details necessary here, and also precise why the buyer could transact with you, and obviously save it. So this is where we are. So finally, to use following several reporting tactics, and let's see how we can understand how these transaction types perform. There are actually two groups of them, so I will run you through both. On one side, you have Ad Exchange historical report type, but also you have historical report type. So we understand that for now it's a bit complex, but I also know that we are working on potentially merging this two under one on our roadmap. So if we want to report on open auction and private auction, you need to select AdX Historical under your reporting, and then you can select a filter of transaction types and choose open auction and private auction, separately or both of them. It doesn't matter, they will appear under AdX Historical transaction types when you do this filter. Then you need to apply the dimensions that you want to understand, whether this is revenue, eCPM, the number of impressions delivered, etc., the metrics that you normally trigger. And on the other side, if you want to report on the preferred and programmatic guaranteed, we would advise to use historical reporting. So on historical reporting, you can once again create a filter for programmatic order and validate it as true. And then you can just select programmatic channel and either click preferred deals or programmatic guaranteed, or select both once again. So you will see actually those details and you will be able to apply the dimensions here. Another way to do it is at the filter level, not to select programmatic channel, but to filter it by line item type. And in that case, you will have an option to tick, which is called is any or preferred deal. Or that would be the same, is any or programmatic guaranteed. So there are two different ways how you can access those metrics and reportings. Both will give you the same results and both are working, whichever works easier for you. And I also hope that you know that you can save these reports as recurrent ones and be able to access them with updated data on their weekly, monthly, or whenever needed. So now, if you're interested to learn more about programmatic transaction types, once again, feel free to follow this QR code or short link to access the Skillshop, the learning course that we mentioned, which is called Explore Programmatic Capabilities in Ad Manager. So I hope it's more or less clear and happy to take further questions. But for now, let's continue because we have several subjects to cover. Our next topic is line items. So let's focus on them because there are several questions that we receive around it. So you might be wondering, and probably have seen it in our discussion about different types of line items, which are typically guaranteed or non-guaranteed. So how are they prioritized and what is the difference? So guaranteed line items, which we also call reserved, they are line items which are contractually obligated to deliver a requested number of impressions. What this means is that they are guaranteed to be served when the conditions are met. So Google Ad Manager ensures that these line items deliver in fully by reserving all the inventory needed for this line item. So there are two types of these guaranteed line items. There is sponsorship and standard line items. By contrast, the non-guaranteed line items are most commonly used to fill their unsold inventory that you will have on your site. They are not contractually obligated to deliver or request a number of impressions versus the guaranteed line items. Let's look at an example. So if a guaranteed line item has met its goal and is no longer eligible, it may defer to a non-guaranteed line item. The same thing can happen if the guaranteed line item is ahead of its delivery schedule and doesn't need the impression to meet its goal. And in that case, the non-guaranteed line item actually will take its place. So if we look at non-guaranteed line items, there are several types. There is network, bulk, and price priority, and house. Commonly, we call them remnant inventory. Their non-guaranteed line items also include AdSense or an ad exchange, depending whether your network is enabled for those line items. So that's in a couple words. And let's look now a little bit further in those priorities. So here you will see on this slide just a quick overview of different line item priorities available. So if you're working directly with the advertiser to run an ad campaign, in that case, the line item should be set either to sponsorship or to standard, which guarantees them the highest priority, 4, 6, 8, or 10. If you're trafficking different third-party ad networks, in that case, we recommend setting them to price priority. So this will help them to earn the most revenue because the highest paying line item will win. And if you're trafficking AdSense through Ad Manager or AdX, then please make sure that the priority is also set correctly, and there is a line priority for them at level 12. I recommend having a look at your line items just to double check once again that the priority is set right. If you have the wrong priority set, you can easily go back and edit them. There's no issue. Normally, it is quite straightforward. Directly sold, sponsorship, or standard. Their third parties should go through price priority at level 12, and AdSense and AdX should also go at 12. For your standard line items, you can encounter different options for delivering impressions. So setting determines how quickly you want these impressions to be delivered. And there are three options. Either you distribute them evenly, or they come front-loaded, or being served as fast as possible. When we choose evenly, this means that we encourage you to use even option to deliver impressions equally over the course of the campaign. And this is our recommended option that Google does suggest to publishers. They're front-loaded. Here, the ad manager will try to deliver impressions ahead of schedule as much as by 25% during the first half of the campaign. And the third option of as fast as possible means that we want to deliver the impressions goal as quickly as possible. So now let's have just a very quick look at why we think that the evenly distribution might suit the best, unless you think of other scenarios. So here, if we're looking at the default setting, let's say line item has a goal of 10,000 impressions over a 10-day period. selecting evenly from the list delivers the daily average of 1,000 impressions plus 5%. This average is being constantly recalculated. So on the first day, this is going to be 1,000 impressions plus 5%. On the second day, so it's going to be there 8,950 impressions left, that the daily average is going to be 994 plus 5%. So this pattern will continue this way daily till the rest of the campaign. This pattern makes sure that it is protected, your delivery is protected against under-delivering causes, and in case there are some traffic dips towards the end of the campaign. So in our opinion, this makes the most sense to preserve the even delivery. Further, as always, to learn more about line items and other aspects of how to deliver with Ad Manager, there is another skill shop that we have prepared. Again, available here through QR code and a quick link, which is called Deliver Ads using Google Ad Manager. So going further to the next block, which is called Unified Pricing Rules. Let's see some common questions on this. We understand the topic can be quite complex because that's also a big subject. So I will try to go through it and also provide some tips. Pricing rules and how they are being prioritized. We can suggest you the following. Here, this template is actually easily usable, and one of good things about it is that it's quite visual. It gives you quite an idea of how to set it up. So there is one thing that you should definitely keep in mind. The highest floor among all rules is always applied, meaning that the higher the price of the rule you have set, this rule will also be applied first, which is made obviously to protect your inventory if that's your intention. So as a result of this, we recommend setting it using the approach from broad to narrow. And we want you to do the targeting exercise on your inventory, which will allow you to determine the lower floors for run of network and default rule, and then build it up going further. So if we start from the lowest rule, which will be the broadest one, you probably want to protect your inventory from the lowest bids. Let's say if you don't want anyone to bid below 0.007 cents or whichever your floor might be, that's the good way to actually open it to default and protect it. Next, you might consider some core markets or your main bulk of inventory. Here, this could be your core markets, or for instance, here could be your bulk, could be your desktop, mobile, etc. And then the third layer would be the breakdown into your most important and most precious inventory, which will have the higher floor and which you want actually to price at the maximum level. So here we will actually recommend you looking at things like ad sizes, inventory type, if there's any conflict channel, or the most highest performance sizes. So that's quite a logical approach to it. Something to remember, if two unified pricing rules target overlapping inventory, the rule with a higher floor price applies, which echoes with what I mentioned previously. So you should always be mindful of that. So if you want to set lower floors for the rules that apply broadly, like run of the network, that's the case. But then please do this, use this narrow down approach. A tip that I use a lot when I work with the publishers is try to pull the report on different sizes, ad units, and different eCPMs. What you want to understand first is what is the split between your screens, between desktop and mobile in terms of eCPM performance, and then how your different sizes perform across all inventory. So what you want to have is the difference in CPMs. Once you have that, it's going to be much easier for you to set up this framework that we're suggesting, from run of network to your core, and then further to the most to the most precious inventory. And of course, a quick tip, power tip. It's always useful to go back to the whiteboard when you're setting your UPRs for the first time before you implement them, because it allows you to think in broader terms and see what is your general inventory and what's your most precious one, and how you can build different targeting options in between. So next, how can I test and iterate on my pricing rule setup? I really like this topic because it gives you a really great opportunity to experiment with your yield optimization and pretty much hands-on experience on it. So if you want to test the impact of a change to unified pricing rule setup, you can go to the reporting, select experiments tab, and here you can choose unified pricing rules and run an experiment on it. So Google Ad Manager actually suggests you quite a robust framework to trust your results, and we will give you some data-driven insights on this experiment. So let's look a bit further on what could be done. So once you've gone into reporting, experiments, and clicked on new experiment, this is what you will see on your screen. So you will need to add information like which UPR rule do you want to experiment with. So for this, you need to have UPR rules already created, the flow type, the experiment duration, and how much traffic it would be. And then you can click on save and you're done. When you're running experiments, there are some good practices to keep in mind. First of all, experiments applied at lower percentages of traffic are less risky, but also less likely to encourage change in behavior. What is good here is that you can follow quite quickly with the results of the experiment. So if it's conclusive, then you can actually open up your experiment from, let's say, 10-15% to larger percentage of your traffic, or you might deploy it on all your inventory if you're comfortable with these results. Something else that you need to keep in mind is that there needs to be a minimum of time to set up. We recommend at least 7 days and ideally 2 weeks for the buying behavior to adopt. So it is important to give it a bit of time to start seeing the change in pattern. And also today there is already a function which allows you to auto-stop the experiment if the results are inconclusive. When you're going into this tab in your ad manager and start playing with the experiments, I think you will notice it. So what you can do beyond this? So it's not just testing on the pricing rules. You can also actually monitor it further on in terms of reporting. So experiments are great, but what this gives you in the longer run. So in terms of reporting, it's actually quite easy to pull it. It's enough to go in the historical report, and there is a dimension called Unified Pricing Rules. This is something you need to check and then select the date. You might know the date when you have started implementing these experiments, as I would recommend taking 2 weeks, month, or a couple months before, so that you can benchmark for the situation of before and after. When you have pulled these results, you actually want to apply line items or demand channel to see how it behaves, what line items are mostly impacted. And then select your metrics, whether it's eCPM, this is probably the key one that you want to see, how it's been impacted, or if you have been lowering it, maybe you want to understand if your coverage has increased, if you were able to deliver more of matched impressions. So those are some other metrics that you could use here. And one of the favorite question of why am I seeing so many no pricing rules applied and what does it mean? It's quite a common question. So what does it mean and when this happens? There are several cases. One, the impressions went unfilled. Second one, for instance, there was no, maybe it was too expensive or it just didn't meet that targeting. Another reason is that the auction candidate was not eligible for this unified pricing. For instance, standard sponsorship or house line items win the impression, and they are just not eligible for competing in the pricing rules. So there are just these several questions, and obviously every publisher has a different setup. So when you're trying to understand why you're seeing no pricing rules implied, I think it's always a good practice to first remove standard and sponsorship line item from your reporting, because they can always be the main reason, and then run those reports again to see what exactly is under delivering. So if you have your run-off network rule, catch-it-all rule, basically your entry default rule applied, it's also a good practice that it should extend to your all indirect demand. So if you do this, then just you won't need to worry about. I mean, if it's already done, that's all great. And then, so another thing that could be a factor is to use target CPM. So if we're going further, so target CPM versus pricing rules, is it how to use it? So target CPM sets an average CPM for your inventory, while pricing floor is a hard floor, sets a minimum CPM. So generally, we recommend using target CPM, which can provide revenue lift by allowing you to monetize additional inventory. Let's just look at the example of how it works exactly. So if you have a hard floor, in this case, there is no flexibility to get any queries below the specified hard floor. While if you're using the target CPM, it will dynamically change the floor prices, allowing additional queries to be obtained, and will still maintain your CPM as you specified. If you want to learn more about pricing rules and how they work, you can always use this QR code and use our Skillshop for this. Now we have next topic around multiple customer management. So let's just have a quick look on what it is and how you can find a reliable MCM partner. So MCM, which stands for multiple customer management, it's a sort of inventory delegation, which gives parent publishers access to the ad requests of their child publishers that have delegated it to their parent account. So some of you might be interested to get help with your monetization through this option. And here we have a list of Google certified publishing partners who can help publishers manage their ad manager account. So it will help you with everything from growing their ad revenue to creating strategies across your setup, optimization, maintenance, you name it. So you can learn more about Google certified publishing partners here and find the right partner for you. So we can search here by the specific services and get the right partner that with a great expertise for you. And another question that we also have heard a lot, are linked AdSense and AdExchange accounts supported in MCM? So linked accounts are not supported, and partners who are looking to use the MCM's parent AdExchange account for monetization will recommend two options. So they both fall under managed inventory. The first option is that the child partner books direct deals in their parent account, or the child partner books direct deals in their own account, but then accesses their parent AdExchange through passback tags or video redirect tags, depending which one you're using. So an alternative to this is under managed account. The child publisher can use their own AdExchange account. They have one. So all of these options are listed here in the Help Center that you have highlighted in their full detail and through the QR code, which you should be able to access. Next question, policy. So here, just for you to be mindful, we won't be able to answer all of the policy questions because obviously we need to take a bit of time. But if you're posting the questions currently, we will be able to get back to you on the questions where we can bring you the answer. during several days after this webinar. So please watch this space. Okay, so let's have a look. When we have this question through the web view, this was one of the questions that we have received. Can I serve AdSense and AdX display ads with web view? So AdX, well, the answer is pretty much here, but unfortunately, AdExchange display ads are not supported through the web view. So there are app developers who want to monetize by publishing AdSense for content or AdExchange display through WebView will have to use one of the following frames. So for Android, it's going to be the Chrome custom tab, or it's going to be as a Safari view control for iOS. So that's one of these questions. Then, what are the do's and don'ts for implementing sticky ads? Well, as for the do's, well, please do keep sticky ads area quite separate from your content, and very important, please avoid any overlap. So we always recommend some padding between your content and the ads. Partially overlapped content should be revealed when a user scrolls. This is very important because this might trigger the confirmed click policy. As on the don'ts, well, don't overlap ads and content quite logically, and avoid any potential mislabeling by placing a sticky ad near the site element. It shouldn't be confusing for your user. Also, avoid implementing sticky ads with a close or X button that can scroll over your ads. So this again can cause confirmed click issues. Just as you can see on my screen, just keep this quite separate and allow for some padding to make sure. Okay. What do we have next? We've received a question on house line items and if there are any policy guidelines on them. So house line item is typically used for the ads that promote your own services and goods. So this means that your house ads are not generally revenue generating. They are what they are called. They are your own ads. So we always obviously place them at the lowest delivery priority of the delivery types. They don't participate in their pricing rules, and they are not included in the forecast results. But they are eligible to compete directly with AdSense, though. And just remember, house ads must follow the same policy requirements as all the other ads, because those are still ads. Okay, next question. Is ad inventory that refreshes allowed to compete? So yes, they are obviously allowed to compete, but we ask you to precise it and declare it here. So you will find this tab on the refresher, refresh triggers, and this is where you probably need to tick them if you're using this the ad refresh on your inventory. Also, as always, here's a quick QR code. If you need to understand it further, you will have more information than we could have provided in this 1-minute answer. We also have quick tips. So we have some questions that we got for how small and medium-sized publishers can grow their inventory. So we wanted to also answer them. One of the publisher asked, what are the tips for the small and medium inventory? And we thought of several. One of them is to enable outstream view for the video. What this means is that you can have in-article and in-feed video formats. These are two different types of outstream ad formats. They're shown actually outside of the video player and integrated directly with your content. So, for example, these ads, they can appear directly in your articles, in your social feeds, or in between the levels of a game, if you're using gaming experience. And so what is really good about them is that they compete against your display advertising inventory. And so this means that the highest CPM wins. This is similar to what we spoke around programmatic. So in article, the first example that you see here, it's basically video in between the paragraphs of editorial content. So this is quite it's own standalone branded message. What you see on the right part of my screen in feed video, this is video ad in content, social or in your product feed. So quite often these videos are native formats. So these both formats are fixed for display ad slots on web and apps. So just keep in mind that ad slots that enable fixed ad sizes or combination of fixed and fluid are supported for in-article and in-feed video ads. However, ad slots with only fluid sizes are not supported. So you can't just select only fluid. It always needs to be both. So how to enable them? Let's go quite quickly. It's very easy. You need to enable them. You need to go under your protections tab for programmatic demand. There under protections, you need to select new protection, select ad content, opt-ins, and then ad experience. Under the ad experiences, you need to select video ads. It's just a small toggle. You need to shift to the right, and you will, in several days, you might start seeing them. If you need to know how to report on in-article and in-feed video once you have activated it, it's also quite easy. For the sake of time, because we also want to answer your question, I'm not going to go in detail of it, but please use Help Center. Just type report on in-article, in-feed video, and you will find their article, which will guide you step by step on how to do it. So next, another step is please always declare authorized sellers with ads.txt. So if you already haven't done so, then that's actually a really good initiative. It is led by IAB in order to improve transparency in programmatic advertising. So you can create your own ads.txt file to identify who is authorized to sell your inventory. So yes, to get started, you just need to navigate to admin part of your page. And there you can select ads.txt management. And so you will be able to, like this, then you will be able to create a new ads.txt, view the text, and delete if there are any duplicating rows. Because each row represents a separate seller that the account is authorized to sell. And then you will be able to upload it. So publish your ads.txt file on your site by copying the text and pasting it in your own file and upload it just to the root domain. And finally, after 24 hours, it's going to be done, and the ads.txt file will start being crawled. So yeah, pretty easy. Another tip that we had in mind here for your value CPM. So value CPM, this is something that you can declare because, and why it is important. Basically, Ad Manager doesn't have access to real-time bids from versus priority line items. So if your value CPM is not up to date, your auction pricing might be slightly off, and you might be leaving money on the table. So how to do it? We have provided here an equation which will help you to go through it. So here you need to use the total revenue that you received from the ad tax associated with selected line item. And then you need another indicator of the number of impressions that Ad Manager sends to selected line item. So you just need to divide one by another, multiply by 1,000, and you will get your value eCPM. So this is for numerator and denominator. So to set this value CPM for non-guaranteed line items, you can do it on the delivery tab. You need to go under delivery, select orders, and then click on the order containing the line item you'd like to edit. And then once you're there in the settings, you need, under the settings, set a value CPM amount that you get through this rate field. So that's what we have Here you will have this information, how to run those reports and how to get this data. And getting further, so to improve your performance, we recommend using high-performing ad sizes. So the sizes vary for your mobile or desktop. For instance, on desktop, we recommend using 3 by 250, 720 by 900, 330 60 by 280, and 160 by 600. So for mobile, we recommend using 320 by 100, but also allow 320 by 50 to compete, to increase the fill rate and maintain the higher user experience. And so finally, we actually also wanted to make sure that your site is fast and mobile friendly. So do mind of user experience on your site. So here we have compiled a number of tools that you can use to get personalized insights about how to improve your site performance. I will name quickly some of them. Test My Site tool, which is a very cool feature. Don't hesitate to use it. You will get general recommendations. When you're using Page Speed Insights, and I guess all your developers should be using it already extensively, and if they're not, please do direct them, are very useful. You will see lots of information further on how to increase your speeds, whether you should delete some of unused JavaScript, etc. And we have compiled here their optimization checklist here. So there are a few quick optimizations that you can find here, and just a general checklist that we're using. And we're getting closer to our resources. So here we have compiled all the links from this presentation. Normally we didn't miss most of them, but feel free to take now the screenshot. You can also access this checklist on demand after the event, so please do so. And we just tried to put all the quick go-to links here. So I think we're good, and I have tried to go more or less fast so that we have time for some live questions. Okay, let's have a look. Okay. So first question, is Ad Manager small business account sufficient for CTV inventory for set-top box plus IMEI SDK Android, or should you get DV360 advanced for this? Okay, Dennis, thank you for the question. So you mean not by DV360, I suppose you mean Ad Manager 360. So indeed, to be able to use connected TV opportunities, and to particularly being able to monetize it with digital ad insertion from Google, you do need to have the enabled feature on advanced video. And advanced video feature is mainly for Ad Manager 360 accounts. So that's something you probably need to consider here. So not sure that the slots have large panels and desktops. Okay, so I honestly won't be able to take all the questions. I see quite a lot of them, but let me just select a couple. Is it possible to show web ads from AdSense and AdDemand for WebView frames within apps? I think we have covered the WebView. So with the apps, there was an answer for Android and iOS in my previous answer. Is there a reason why there is no direct integration between Ad Manager for small business and Data Studio? I don't think their Data Studio is directly integrated anywhere. So we are working on the product development. I can't tell you further on this question, Matthew. Sorry about that. What is the ad serving cost? Sorry, John. That's what can if you can precise in follow-up question what you mean exactly by that. I'm afraid I won't have all underlying. Okay. Sorry, just give me a second. So what are the best ways to impact on field impressions? We're 100% programmatic and we have campaigns set up to fill all inventory and we still end up with higher than desirable unfilled impressions. From General, thanks for the questions. I just trying to just sort this one. So for the unfilled impressions, well, first, actually, you need to understand where they come from. You need to probably run a report on the unfilled impressions by the requested size and see which one impressions. You're saying that you're 100% programmatic, but you just need to make sure that your AdX line item then is targeting your full inventory, and you can select in the reports they're eligible eligible impressions to be served through for those transactions. So that's a second thing to do. First, identify the size. Make sure that AdX serves everywhere. When size is identified and you understand which one is serving the high impressions, I mean, there are so many hypotheses. It's hard to answer just in theory. You should also probably look at your pricing rules if you have them. You can match that your unfilled versus the pricing rules and see if maybe some of them does it correspond to some of those rules? Maybe some of them could be high or for any other reason. But in the end, it's still normal to have a certain amount of unfilled impressions. I understand that you are not happy, so I don't have the benchmark to tell you what is the normal average rate of unfilled that someone should have. But even with 100% programmatic, it is still normal. So just make sure that AdX is targeting everything and see which size is impacted, and then probably you need to go and see and troubleshoot. And to troubleshoot, you need to actually go in the code and see if the GPT tag is still there. Go actually technically for the highest, let's say, ad unit for a particular size which delivers the highest rate of unfilled, what is going there. We often see, at least in my case when I work with publishers, I often see that there will be a certain cost for unfilled, can come from the app setup when you split it by screen, and then you can identify where it comes from. Okay, how can I determine maximum ads per page ad density? We currently don't run the ad density reports, but out of those question from Julius, out of those, you can experiment with your user experience and with your page speed. I don't think we have any recommendations in terms of this is the ad density that you should have, but you could actually experiment by reducing it or increasing it. I don't know what's your case. How do you think you're positioned currently? And checking it versus viewability factors and trying maybe to do it not obviously on your largest pages, but on some of them. So if your viewability increases and if you can see by running through those tools that I shared previously that your ad speed increases, then probably that's a good thing to look into reducing your ad density. Speaking about ads.txt, when I download, it's empty. So it's not just something to download. Please follow that link that I've shared before. You need to declare it, and then you need to upload, or else just follow with that link. I don't have the exact case to help you further, Julius. Apologies about that. Okay, I'm mindful we still have 5 minutes left. Okay. Sorry, looking for further questions. Just give me a second. Okay. How does labeling work through Ad Manager? Kirsty, I'm not sure what you mean by labeling through Ad Manager. If we're talking about segmentation for the pricing rules or through anything else, not quite sure what you mean here. Okay, Suraj Kumar asking, I have a publisher using one DEX, I guess it's one ADEX with 2 GAM small business. He's worried that this ADEX will be affected due to recent MCM changes. So the MCM changes, so I'm not quite sure. They have one ADEX account and they serve it through 2 different Ad Manager accounts, which sounds interesting. Might be affected to recent MCM changes. So in that case, there needs to be one parent account and one child account. So for them to still be able to use it, they will need to be able to clarify the setup between the 2 accounts. If one of them has more of a parent and another has a child role, they will need to be able to decide who does what, and then just follow the MCM if one of them had previously their scaled partner management function already enabled for this, if that was your question. How could I set up an intro on mobile intro on OpenAction? Is there any template I could use? So if you mean introduction or a mobile introduction on OpenAction, Miguel, if this is something related to the skill shop, is there any templates you could use, or how to start using OpenAction? So there are like a couple of skill shops that are really good if you want to start using the OpenAction. If that's correct. So yes, we had a couple of questions that were pre-submitted. Just being mindful here. So how can you manage the priority between 2 campaigns at the same ad line item when one is based on impressions and the other is based on percentage of impressions? So in this case, this is what we were talking about previously. There is one on the that you can use sponsorships line item. This will actually define the percentage and which will give you the highest priority. So this will serve before anything else. And you can use standard line items with slightly lower priority, but this will be based on impressions. So if your question is how to manage the priority between 2, so the ones which come on the impressions will get the higher priority because you will set it up as sponsorship priority 4, and the ones based on impressions will get the lower one. So for you to decide how you want to applicate it. Okay. Okay, next. Someone would like to master the basic order line item training and ways to improve delivery for your clients. So there is an actual skill shop on it, on the line items. And I apologize if I send you quite often to the skill shop and to the help center, but these are very extensive answers. And we put these resources to just for this use. So I would advise just literally going in their line items, skill shop, and let me just, we will put you here. Here I will put a link on it. So if you follow the skill shop that we will post you in the chat right now, you will be able to actually have the full explanation on what are line items, how you should set them up, and how you can improve the deliveries. And that's full information on the Delivery with Ad Manager that we have. So yes, I'm really mindful of our time together. I will take one more question and we will try to wrap up. So someone asked, what are possible reasons if we have millions of requests but no impressions, even for our own campaigns on sponsorship level? So that's something that you need to investigate here to understand where they go. If you follow the logic of ad requests, the ad requests, they will actually transform in the code served. The code served may yield impressions or may yield the drop, and this will cause the unfilled. So for you to understand better where it goes through, you need to first run the report on the unfilled and understand one of the first reasons, do they go unfilled? And with current GDPR setup, there might be some further reasons for this to go unfilled. For instance, if you will have the ads which are non-personalized ads, for instance, if the user didn't give the consent. So, and in that case, even your sponsorship level, you might not have enough inventory eligible to serve. So those ad requests won't be answered. To be able to understand it, now in the reporting, you also have the dimension that allows you to follow serving restrictions. So just in your report, type serving restrictions to understand what is eligible to serve. And then if were you seeing lots of requests, but no, if there are literally 0 impressions, there is a technical error. If there are very low percentage of impressions when there are lots of ad requests, so that means that it doesn't go through for some reasons. It is not eligible for some reasons. So if it's not technical, then I would go around understanding unfilled, understanding pricing rules, and understanding serving restrictions. So this is where I am, and I hope we have answered at least several questions. Apologies if we didn't cover it all. We will try to get back to you after the webinar and answer the other questions as we can, at least those that we can, during several days after this webinar. So please watch the space. And on this, I thank you very much and wish you a good day. Thank you.